If it ain't broke, don't fix it. It looks like the creator of Akame ga Kill decided, you know what, that S-Death character was really popular, so let's make her like the main female lead of a whole nother series. Yeah, I'm joking mostly. S-Death is definitely way different than Kyoka, but let's admit that there's a lot of characteristics in appearance that are very similar there. But yes, truth be told, I had zero expectations coming in Chain Soldier, and that was mainly around the idea that I don't trust the studio. I don't trust the studio to do a good job of something. The PV already looked like it had some rough-looking CGI. I will admit, the CGI in the first episode seemed to be a lot better than I thought it was going to be. But yeah, after watching the first episode, I'm impressed. I'm slightly impressed. My levels of expectation for the show has come up quite a bit. Now, I will say, give credit where credit's due. This show, it looks like it is working at breakneck speed. It's not even dragging its feet. We're like, established world, throw main character in there, immediately, let him join up, go immediately to the harem house. It seemed like the most interesting introduction to a old school harem where one guy goes to an all-girls dorm. I don't know if that's going to be what the show is going to be about, is just literally go out and fight and then come back to the, Love Hina house and have him, surrounded by a bunch of girls, but we'll see. It is characterized as, ecchi and everything, so it wouldn't shock me. But yeah, let's get into my first impressions of Chain Soldier, or Mato Seihei no Slavu. You're not supposed to say the Slavu part. I remember when this first came over as a manga, everybody was outraged about the fact that they took out the Slavu part, because obviously it's not going to go over very well over here. So I'm going to be dancing around that name, obviously, for YouTube's sake. So let's get into it. But yeah, it pretty much opens up this world where they have these Mato disasters, where these portals open up to another world, and this other world, these Shuki appear and attack everybody. And they have pretty much been cultivating these peaches. And the thing about the society in this world is that women are kind of seen as better than men, because women can consume and gain abilities from these harvested peaches. And so it kind of opens up with this idea of Yuki, at school, and the guys are having to clean up the school, and then they're talking about how the princesses are coming into the school. Like, it's time for the girls to arrive at school after the men have cleaned it up. So it is kind of creating this idea of the women being in control and the men are kind of less than them, which sort of to the concept of this world does sort of make sense in the idea that the women are the ones that have power. They're the ones that are fighting the Shuki. So it lends itself to the idea of them being a little more respected than the men. It gives some hints that Yuki has lost his sister a long time ago. It is heavily implied later on that it is due to the Shuki themselves, because he wants to get revenge for his sister. But yeah, as he's walking down the street, eventually he ends up appearing in this other world. This Mato disaster has happened right on top of him, and he suddenly found himself in this other alternate world. He quickly pulls up his phone, which has like a guideline on what to do if you ever get pulled in this world. And it like slowly explains the whole process. I'm like, get to the point, lady. I'm in the bad place right now. But it kind of implies to him that, look, sit still, because the anti-demon corps will show up and they will basically take you back to the real world. And sure enough, he's being attacked by the monsters, and eventually Kyoka shows up, which is a part of this anti-demon corps. And she quickly is riding around on top of these Shuki. She's able to take control of them. Again, I'm going to use specific words here. Put a chain around their neck and control them. And she's able to run around and slice things up and everything. And eventually they end up finding another girl, another boy. And as they're all trying to flee from the area, eventually Yuki protects this girl and Kyoka erects this barrier. And then at that point, we get a little bit more into Kyoka herself. Like I said earlier, every time these girls consume one of these peaches, they will gain an ability. And it seems like Kyoka is determined that she wants to be pretty much the supreme commander of the entire anti-demon corps, because they feel the current commander isn't doing a good job. We're probably going to find out that it's probably her dad. She has like this massive disdain for this person that's commanding. It's probably going to be her dad. But anyways, that aside, my assumptions aside there, she's been training her whole life in the sword. That's why she's really skillful in the sword. It's not her ability. Her ability is the ability to essentially take control of creatures. And it seems like it is, in general, creatures, because she very quickly brings up the idea of trying it on a man. She's always used them on Shuki, but she's never tried it on an actual person. And so while they're kind of back to a corner, she claims that she could probably handle it herself. But since she has two people there that are civilians, it's going to be more difficult. So she proposes to Yuki, I have an opportunity here for us to survive. will you help me out? And he's like, yeah, sure, I'll help you with anything. She's like, all right, I'll take you on that word. Tells the girl to go off to the side to kind of cover her ears and eyes. And then he goes, okay, you're going to become my controlled person. And he's like, wait, what? Okay, sure, whatever. Let's do this. And sure enough, she controls him and he turns into this monstrosity thing that goes around and destroys everything. Much to the surprise of Kyoka, because she didn't expect him to be that powerful and have that quick of responses. She's able to kind of ride on his back, hold on to his chain, and able to tell him directions to go, and he's quickly responding to it. And yes, very powerful. Now, the big twist, and probably why this is going to be labeled as ecchi, is that afterwards, after she commands whatever she's controlling, which has been up to this point, it's always been the Shuki, she has to give a reward for every task they do. So again, with the Shuki, when she was controlling them in order to fight, she was only having to really kind of feed them pork, and they were happy with it. But with Yuki, after the whole fight happens and he changes back to normal, she has to give the reward. And she mentioned the idea that her body moves on itself. Like, she can't control herself. She has to fulfill a reward. And for this, yes, self-proclaimed virgin that has never touched a girl, it's a kiss. And so she's forced to have to sit there and kiss him, and then goes on to Frenching him and everything, and then that's the contract is complete. But no, this doesn't dissuade her. She seems like she's okay with it, but she's not okay with it. But it kind of follows this whole thing where she's like, okay, from now on, I want you to be my controlled. From now on, I want you to fight alongside me. Doesn't really seem like she's giving him an option. And again, that can kind of contribute to the aspect of them essentially being less than the women. So whatever she says, Yuki's gonna have to follow it. But he agrees to it. The idea here is she wants something powerful, and her ability has always been seen as something weak because all she could do was just control Shuki, and they're not always that strong. And so she was a little upset in the idea that that was the power that was given to her because she wanted something extremely strong so that she could be powerful enough to become the supreme commander. But now that she has Yuki and sees how strong he is, she's like, okay, good. You're gonna be my one that I control, and you'll help me rise up the ranks. On Yuki's side, he's going, well, if I don't do this, I'll just go back to the real world and I'll just have a normal, boring job and it won't be very fulfilling. But here, at least, I can do something that's meaningful. I could become a hero, and I can avenge my sister. So he's cool with it. Like, all right, cool, I'll do that. And then they end up all going back to the all-girls dorm where the anti-corps meet up and everything like that, and he ends up meeting the rest of her squad, which is, you know, Himari, who seems to be able to turn her body into weapons. You have Shushu, who is able to get really giant, which is going to be the running joke for everybody that has watched my channel and content for a long time. Everybody thinks I'm obsessed with giant girls. Literally, it's only one character in every series that I like is one giant girl. So everybody's going to think that I'm obsessed with Shushu. She's cute. Nei, who's the recent arrival to their group before Yuki did. She's only 11 years old. She is able to sense things in an area. And then that's pretty much that's the band. But yeah, when she arrives there, he thinks that he's going to become a member of the corps itself. But she's like, no, men can't become members of the anti-demon corps. You're going to become basically our maid. So when they're out in battle, she's going to be controlling him. And then when they get back to the dorms, he's cleaning and cooking. So he's become the mother of goddess dormitory, essentially. Like I said, that's where we get that whole realm of like, man, this feels like an old school harem where guy suddenly is thrown into an all girls dorm. It's a common plot device. So we're used to it at this point. Like I said earlier, I'm pleasantly surprised by the show. I wasn't really expecting too much out of it, and that was mainly because if it is partially an action series and it's 7 arcs and it looks like they're going to be pretty much mostly using CGI, I figured it was probably going to look bad. But they did a pretty good job of kind of blending it in, having lots of action happening. I will admit that most of the action didn't seem like you could really see much. Like there wasn't much thought put into it, I guess. It's a lot of just kind of rushing through things and then splash happening and not really thought put into the actual action scenes themselves. So that's kind of a disappointment there, and hopefully it gets a little better going forward. I will admit that most of the Kyoka stuff I think was pretty cool. She seems like an absolute badass, and I kind of like that aspect of it. It seems like there's a lot more thought put into her. Like it's more than like her style and swordsmanship and throwing some extra things in like the barrier and everything like that kind of adds a little more flavor flavor to her combat style. But yeah, Yuki's stuff was just, like I said, mostly just kind of stab with hand over and over again and punching things. We didn't get to really see much of the other crew. It was, again, kind of disappointing, the idea that Himari just kind of turns her hand to a gun and then you just see like this spray of bullets that's not even animated. Shushu was just kind of, she turns big and then steps once and then crushes something with a boulder, and that was it. But again, a single episode, so hopefully something more in the future. I think the thing that I'm more fascinated with is the concept of the world itself. And I do like this idea of seeing kind of a different structure to a world and society. And like I said earlier, it kind of makes sense in the idea of the women being a little bit more well-respected in the society. Obviously having physically more power, and obviously lends itself to more societal power than the men. I do appreciate that even though they did a little bit of exposition dump, it did kind of feel like Yuki and them are just kind of living in the reality, that this is just how it is. So I do kind of appreciate that how they laid out the exposition. It kind of felt less forced than you typically get. Like, it didn't have the characters kind of sit around going, yeah, it's all because those peaches showed up a long time ago and they ate them and they became super powerful, and then the society kind of just driven the men to the, to the dirt. And so it is what it is. It was kind of just a very brief line, and again, it is what it is kind of statement. I am kind of curious how dark the story itself will get, because obviously, again, being from the creator of God and Kill, for those that know, it is a show that's kind of maliciously dark with its characters. So we'll see if that's something that kind of carries over to here. I'm not sure. I haven't actually read into it too much, so nobody needs to answer my question here. I don't really know how dark this one will get, or if the writer just kind of did that with a Kami ga Kill and they're not really going to do it with this series, but we'll see. But yes, there is a side of me that's kind of curious as to how much they're going to play into the feedback that Kyoka is kind of getting with her ability. Obviously, again, she has to reward Yuki every single time. Does that change every single time? That's going to be probably the thing that's going to be feeding a lot of the ecchi for the series, is yes, after every battle, he's probably going to want something more and something more, and it's going to play in that. It sort of indicates this idea like she was forced to go over to kiss him, and it kind of implied this idea of, oh, okay, so that's what you wanted. All right, that's not too bad. So yes, it kind of implies this idea that yes, Yuki could have thought that he wanted something else and she would have to do it on the spot, but I'm assuming that's going to probably be the joke going forward, is after every single battle, he's going to want something different, like, yes, touching her chest or something like that. We'll see, but it was... I like how there's a little bit of brutal honesty here in the idea that Yuki's like, well, yes, I could become a hero. I'll be able to avenge my sister, and yes, I'll also get some good time with Kyoka. I do appreciate the honesty. At least the main character is pretty honest with it. Like, yeah, cool. All right. I mean, it's not going to be like a, oh, whoa, I'm so, I can't believe she kissed me. And he's just sitting there like with a bloody nose or something like that. I do appreciate how Yuki's kind of like, shrug. Yeah, sure. Awesome. I'll take it. Added bonus. That's just icing on the cake. There, like I said, there is a nicety there. I do like Kyoka's personality as well. Like I said, she's very driven, and there is a sense there that she wasn't okay with it, but she's kind of like a, well, if that's what you want, you get it. Because it is a transaction for her. I think it is kind of playing out this idea of Kyoka seeing it as a transaction. I need the strength. He gave that strength to me. He did some cool stuff. Like, she even mentioned the idea that you even saved that little girl. That's kind of, she implies this idea that that's kind of unbecoming of men. And again, it kind of plays in that whole idea that these women are the ones that are on the battlefield, the ones that are protecting society. And so men are seen as weak. They're not the ones out here and fighting. And to see Yuki kind of shield somebody, yes, Kyoka's like, yeah, that was kind of cool. You did that. So again, it kind of plays very quickly in the idea of them being okay with each other, and Kyoka seeing it as a transaction, which I do kind of appreciate. How well that'll play out going forward, or if it's just a simple, pretty solid little kind of introduction, we'll see. But anyways, it's solid. I like the style of it. Again, the CGI is doing a lot better than I thought it would. So we'll see. Like I told somebody else, is like, yeah, the first episode did technically bump up my expectations a little bit, but I'm going to keep them down because this is the first episode. But yeah, again, also pretty cool. Similar to Gushing Over Magical Girls, it is another high dive that is going to be uncensored, which is great as well. Again, another props to high dive, but we'll see where it goes from here. But that's my thoughts on the first episode of Chain Soldier. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, make sure that like button down below, comment, let me know what's thought of the episode. Additionally, if you're new to the channel, make sure that subscribe button, subscribe my content, any news, reviews, first impressions, top list if it's anime is pretty much here. I'll be doing first impressions of all the shows of the season, so stay tuned if you want to get a brief idea of what it's about, some screenshots, my thoughts on it overall, what to expect. That's all here. Additionally, if you like this content and you want to support the channel more, I have a Patreon link, tips link, super thanks, membership button down below. Greatly appreciate what it does, and y'all take care.